Hello guys, so welcome to your own channel, Chess Study Kolkata. And now I hope from the thumbnail you can completely understand what this video all about. Now let me show you. Like F2 is the weak square for the white, and the F7 is the weak square for the black. And you can see the E4, D5, E4, E5. These four squares are the center squares. Okay, so we have to control the centers and we have to attack on the F7. So we can move the bishop on c4. That is how we can attack the f7 square. Now, there is a lot of ways that we can move over queen, like we can move over queen to f3, attacking the f7 square. We can move over queen to h5. That is how we can attacking the f7 square. And also, it is possible that we can move over queen to d5 and attacking the f7 square. Okay. So in the early stages of the game, definitely we can go with this kind of ideas and we can deliver the checkmate very quickly if your opponent is not careful. So now after e4 and e5, you can see the book move suggests the knight to f3. Why knight to f3? Because after knight to f3, if opponent don't the chess routes and they play pawn to f6, you can see this diagonal is pretty much weak. So what we can do, we can immediately explode it by capturing a pawn and winning a pawn. Now here opponent needs to push the pawn or play knight to c6, and that is how hold on to the position. But if opponent takes the knight over here, that's a big mistake because here we just simply play queen check, and now if opponent push the pawn, then simply queen takes pawn, attacking the king and attacking the king. That is how we can throw in the knight. Okay. So and now from this position, the second and the last option is that king come forward e7, and then the task is very easy. Just queen captures e5, giving up a check. Now king only needs to move to the to f7, and now the bishop is developing with tempo. Tempo means here bishop is attacking the king, so there is a lot of options for black over here. But although black cannot able to play this kind of moves, either they have to move the king or they need to push the pawn. In both the cases, like if you push the king, that's a big blunder because here just the bishop takes pawn. Now opponent don't want to give up their queen for the bishop, but this is only saving resource because if they want to protect it with the bishop, then queen takes bishop. This leads to the check. Okay. Now, why my preparation and my lines are not allowing the book moves, and so why I am not suggesting you to develop your knight on f3 first? Because if you develop the knight on f3, the opponent can able to play the move like bishop to c5. Okay, so this is called the bush gas gambit. And now here, if you take the pawn, like it's a free pawn, so why we should not take it? No, the opening principle is that you do not move the same piece twice or thrice in the opening. So we already moved the knight two times, and now here you can see opponent can play knight to c6. And if you move that knight on d3, you can see the d2 pawn is blocked, so bishop is not able to move. So we have to do a hard struggle. Now this f1 bishop is also getting a passive. Okay, and if you move the knight from e5 to c4, then you can see knight is a kind of misplaced at the position. So it's a bit, and if you move the knight back to f3, then you can see opponent can develop the third knight. So while we are playing with the white, definitely we can focus on development. Development means all the pieces are starting from the first rank and gradually they become move from the first rank, now going to the third rank, fourth rank, fifth rank, and attacking the king. Because the aim of the chess game is that we have to attack the opponent's king. So that's the reason we have to develop our pieces and go for attacking the king and delivering to check. So here you can see moving the knight back to f3 is not a good option. So here we can take the knight, and after pawn takes, you can see this is just a position where black got the full initiative. Now, if we I can go with the engine analysis, engine shows that black got the white got advantage of 1.11, but you can see the piece activity is getting mobilized for the black. So that's not good for the white. And now, whenever the black white makes any kind of mistake like pawn to d4, try to grab the center, bishop just take the pawn, and now if you attack the bishop, that's a big mistake because bishop takes the pawn, and after king takes, queen takes the queen back. So we can't do that, and king to e2 is also not good because here opponent can play bishop to g4, forcing the white king to take the bishop, and after the white king take the bishop, black get two options like they can capture the queen directly with the queen or with the bishop, and both the cases we just lost the queen. Okay. So that is the exact reason for my preparation. After e4, e5, I'm not recommending to play knight to f3 because some of the teachers are to following the beginner rules. But when you are hitting a tournament, you are no more a beginner. If you are a beginner, then you are not allowed to play a tournament because tournaments are for the title players or for the advanced players. So here, that's the tournament preparation. This is completely different from that theoretical chess. This is something which is tournament preparation. So we should want to choose the opening. So we choose with bishop to c4. That's called the bishop's opening. If you want more information about bishop's opening, just go to the YouTube or Google and search bishop's opening, and you get tons of ideas over it. Now, after bishop to c4, you can see there is a three possible replies from black. That is knight to c3, knight to f6, and bishop to c5. Okay, these three are the standard replies. And the fourth one is that some people play who are very passive. They play pawn to d6. That's called the actually filial defense. Okay? This is the filial defense. Okay, so in the defense, you see bishop is getting passive. Okay? If you want to learn theories like if a black plays filial defense, then you get infinite chances that you can just smash the black very quickly. Okay? So let me show you one of the rules. Like here you can see you can play pawn to d4. And opponent needs to take the pattern as you see that the opponent is totally passive player. So opponent will remove knight to f6. So here we just capture the pawn and after pawn captures back. What we can do just sacrifice the bishop, like bishop takes f7. And if opponent is not careful and we take the bishop back, then simply we can capture the queen. So that is how we can get advantage. And now that's not the end of the game. Like here, you can play the bishop to b4, attacking the king. So we need to move the queen back because the rook is giving a discover attack to the queen. So we just need to move the queen back. And after the bishop takes queen, knight takes bishop, you can see we are protecting our extra pawn. You can see white got 7 points and black got 6 points. So in the opening, you are maybe a pawn or maybe a piece. That's all. These all are the advantages you can get in the opening. Okay. So this is one of the way that you can deal with the failure defense. But I'm not making this video to demonstrate you what is failure defense because there is a many other ways that you can crush the black very easily if they play failure defense. So let's go and I'm just giving you the idea if the position is become passive, what to do. Now let's come and learn what is the exact way of dealing every step. Okay. So what is the exact way? The exact way is that like from this position, you can see after bishop to c4, knight to c6 is possible, knight to f6 is possible, and bishop to c5 is possible. So let's first focus on bishop to c5. So here, if we put bishop to c5, we can turn this game into the Lewis gambit. How? By playing pawn to d4. Okay. And now there is two replays. One is the bishop takes pawn, to another is pawn takes pawn, and bishop goes back. So if your opponent take the pawn with the pawn, immediately we are winning from the fourth move. That is bishop takes f7. This move is considered as a brilliant move. You can check with chess.com because chess.com notations are very much familiar and it is available very easily. So whenever you are going for the game review, you can see this bishop takes f7 move is a kind of brilliant move as a case. Like why? Because the queen comes to h5, attacking the king, attacking the bishop. And now no matter what the king moves and pushing the pawn, we just simply capture the bishop. And that is how we are remaining the same. Now here white lost one pawn and one bishop, and black lost one pawn and one bishop. So what is the advantage? The one and only advantage is that black king cannot castle and our target is king. So if king is not able to move, then we just simply develop more pieces, go for the castle, then we can push pawn f4. That is how we can clear the way of the rook and directly go for the checkmate. And black is just worried about his king safety. So they just move the king here and there, and that is how we can get the advantage and deliver the checkmate very quickly. Now, here also you can see the queen is attacking the pawn. So the logical way to defend the pawn is to play knight to c6. And whenever opponent play knight to c6, we can play knight to f3. And now definitely opponent can push the pawn and threatens your queen. So after that, we want to move the queen to c4 because if you move the queen to c4, pawn can cancel something different, just like that. So we can move the queen to d5. That is how also we can give a check to the king. And now from here, if the king moves away, we just go ahead and capture the pawn. Let me show you. Like here, if king just move away simply, we just go ahead and capture the pawn, remain a pawn up, and now after knight takes, a queen takes, you can see we are threatening to capture the rook. And the one and only way is that by moving the queen or moving the knight. If they're moving the knight, then we are moving another piece as well. Like here, we are attacking the knight. So rook moves and protect the knight, and then we just push the pawn. And after pawn takes, queen takes, we can go for plot if you want. But here, at any time, opponent can do mistake, and they can try to protect the knight with the king, and that's a very big mistake because here we just simply capture it with the queen, and here you can see there is only option for the king to move back, and then we just simply capture the rook, giving up another check, and no matters whether king moves, we can capture the queen as well. Okay. So against four pieces, five pieces, black got only two pieces. So definitely you will winning the game from here. And now there are some main stuffs. Like here you can see bishop comes to e6. That's looking very interesting. Much like bishop is protecting the queen and all. And now we can move the knight to g5. Threatens the king, just forking the king and bishop. And whenever king moves, like here, there is five possible moves for the king. So wherever king moves, we just simply capture the bishop with the knight. And that is how we can remain a piece up. So that's only the 10 moves of the game and we just up a piece. Now, if we maintain our advantage, there is no one who can defeat. And there is also other lines like a king can't go to f8 to g7 because if king goes to f8 or g7, then we just simply capture the bishop with the knight, forking king and queen, and there is no point to continue the game from here. Okay. Okay. Now, if a king comes to the e7, then if you see queen takes the bishop, giving up a check, king moves, and then queen f7 leads to the checkmate supported with the king. Okay. All right. So for the full theory, you can contact me. I will provide you the full theory in brief. Right. Now, let's focus on the other moves. Okay. This is all we are discussing about Lewis Gambit. Now, so it is not necessary that every time opponent will move the bishop and allow you to play Lewis Gambit. Okay. So sometimes opponent can play knight to f6 or opponent can play knight to c6. Okay. So by confusing, by avoiding all of the confusion, I am suggesting you move like no notice whether they are starting with the knight to f6 or knight to c6. And let's see they start with the knight to c6. Okay, so what we can do, we have to play knight f3. Now notice whether knight f6 or c6, we can play knight f3. Okay. And now from here, there again there is two options like developing the knight and developing the bishop. Okay, so if opponent develop the knight, then we already know this is called Italian game two knights defense. And also it is considered as the three knights defense. Okay, so whenever you can see this two knights defense from the black, what we can do, we can straight away go into the next line attack, okay, by playing pawn to d4. Okay, if you search the Scotch Gambit games or the Scotch games, the tons of tools theories are available in this position. Now here we are focusing on the max lang attack. So here the pawn takes, we just pushing the pawn forward, attacking the knight. Knight moves away, then we just go for the sacrifice. Bishop takes, and after king takes, now knight to g5 check. And if the king goes to the g8, if king goes to anywhere else, we just simply go ahead and capture the knight, and that is how we have remained a piece up. And now if you're worried about your pawn, like knight can capture the pawn, then just go ahead, capture the pawn back with the queen, that as the knight, and here opponent can't do anything. Like if opponent try to protect the knight, then we just simply complete the castle. Now our king is safe. We just need to develop the knight, putting the bishop on e3 and bring the rook. So that is how we can activate all of our pieces very quickly. And now you can see these are the long term weakness for the black. And now if king goes to the g8, like if king goes to the g8, I'm not interested in the knight. We are only interested in king, so we will play queen to f3. That is how we can thread as checkmate over here. Okay. And now no matter so whether a king moves to e7 and try to protect it, or queen to e8 protecting the f7 square, we just switch our attack from a different direction, like queen moves to d5, delivering a check. And now after queen moves, just queen takes queen. and dash leads to the checkmate. Now here there is only one saving resource that the queen can come to the e6. Then you don't get the checkmate, but here you get the point. And after the pawn takes knight, if you can see, if you observe the position a little bit carefully, that opponent don't have the queen and you don't have one knight only. So that is one extra knight versus queen. So I think definitely you can win from this position. And other resources like other options are not very useful because capture the pawn with the either knight is a result in the same that we can move the pawn to d5 giving up a check and after knight blocks queen takes knight checkmate. Okay. So if king goes to the g8 then there is no way that opponent can save the position. Okay, only. So that's all about max lang attack. Let me just start everything from the beginning. So we start with the e4 and we are studying the e5 line. And now here instead of moving the knight to f3, we can start with bishop to c4. Now if opponent play bishop to c5, then we can go into the Lewis Gambit territory. Now if opponent develop knight to c6, I mean knight to f6, we can go to the max lang territory. Like after knight to c6, we just develop knight to f3. Why knight to develop knight to f3 is important because here we just complete the castle, give everything a safety, and that is how we can go with the game. And here there is two options, that is bishop move and knight move. Okay. So first we see the knight move, and here we just turn into the max lang attack. There is three alternative ways in the max lang attack, like knight can capture the pawn, knight can capture the d pawn, and pawn can capture the d pawn. So first we look at the pawn captures d pawn. So just putting the pawn and a knight moves to g4. So what happens if knight moves to the center? If knight moves to the center, then definitely you just complete the castle. If I safeguard your king, and on the next move you will bring your rook, threatens the knight, and that is how definitely you can to win from this position. And so here you can see like from this position, what is the other options will be available. Like here, a knight can take the pawn and now this is something from the sponge gambit theories that actually here it is theoretically suggested that just bishop takes f7 and after king takes bishop, just a knight takes pawn giving up a check and no matters whether the king moves, we just go ahead and simply capture the knight. So that's the Scotch gambit theory, but we are in the max line attack territory. Okay. So I developed some theories on the max line that after knight takes, what you should do, you should go ahead and capture the pawn. Okay, and now there is a double threat like knight captures f7, forking the queen and rook. So you need to know the value of the queen and rook is 9 and 5. So they are the major pieces and knight it is 3. So knight is only a minor piece. So with a minor piece, if you get a major piece, then definitely in the middle game and end game, the game is completely winning for you. So that's the first threat. And the second threat is that the knight is unprotected. So queen takes knight. Okay, so from this position, there is no way that opponent can save the position. So here, actually, if you could third opponent, let's play pawn to d5 and that is the bishop. So here, if queen takes the knight, I will take the bishop. Okay, so just go ahead, take the knight, and now after opponent take the bishop, what opponent don't spotted that here we can capture the queen. So here, king captures the queen is forced, and we can capture knight capture f7, forking the king and rook. So we just establish our plan that after king moves, just knight takes rook. Okay, that is how we can win from the position. And now from here you can see the last option is that here knight takes the pawn. If you search over the internet about the max lang attack, this variation is only shown by the YouTubers because these other two variations are theoretical lines and people don't have idea regarding this. So here we just simply capture the pawn and here you can see if opponent flip pawn to d5 again we can go and do in person and remains a couple of pawns up. But here, if opponent move bishop to c5, that's a big mistake because we can move the queen to d5 and it threatens to deliver the checkmate of f7 as well as threatening unprotected knight. So here you can see bishop can take the f2. So it's your choice whether you can move the queen to f2, f1 or e2. Both are good moves because here opponent can go ahead capture the f2 giving up a check. So you can move the king to e2. Now king 2 is a little bit better because you can see you just develop new rook and then complete the man muscle. So and if king opponent is realized that there is no way they can save the knight. Okay. And we are also taking checkmate. So here the opponent must save the checkmate by completing the castle or removing the queen. Okay. So if removing the queen, then we just capture the knight. That's not good. So here opponent should complete the castle. That's a better move than moving the queen e7. So here just queen takes knight. So opponent just lost a piece. Okay. And from here you can see opponent can move the bishop back. And you just one piece up. So you just move the rook. And on the next move, you should develop the bishop, develop the knight, and you can see all of your pieces are getting activated very, very quickly. Okay. On the from this position, you can see if an opponent play some passive moves like pawn to d6 or something, immediately you can move the knight and going for a checkmate on the h7 square with the queen and knight. And here, if opponent push the pawn, we can just switch the queen to the h4, and that is how we can threaten the pawn. So here, opponent needs to move the pawn back, and then you just slide down your queen back. And believe me or not, from this position opponent can't do anything. Okay, like here, if your opponent wants to capture this pawn or something, what you can do is just simply go ahead, capture the pawn with the knight, and here your opponent don't get a time to capture it back with the rook, because here we just simply capture it back with the queen, giving up a check to the king, and no matters whether king moves. If king moves to the f8, then queen takes rook, this is delivering the checkmate, and if the king actually goes to the corner, then we can bring our rook into the game and on the next move, we will deliver the checkmate, and that is impossible to say. Okay, all right. So these all are the preparations you can see on the max lang attack. But it is not necessary that every time opponent can allow you to do the max lang attack. Okay. So let me just show you from the beginning. E4, E5, bishop to C4. Okay, opponent can play knight to C6. You can play knight to F3, and instead of moving the knight to F6, allow us to go to the max lang territory. They can develop bishop to C5. So if they play bishop to c5, then what we have to do? We just to simply complete the castle. Okay. Now, after completing the castle, you can see knight f6 is the best move, attacking the into pawn and ready for the castle. So after knight to f6, you can see this position is called the Italian Kotlanowski gambit. Okay. So you can enter into the Kotlanowski gambit from this position. This is also known as the Deuce Gambit. Deuce Gambit is a like opening is a bit of different. Deuce Gambit you can enter from the Scotch Gambit line, but the middle game plan or the piece setup is same for both teams. Okay. So this is completely middle game plan. Like here you can see already four move completed. So the opening phase is completed here, and now we start the game with pawn to d4. So one thing you spotted that I am not developing my knight to c3. If I develop my knight to c3, you can see here black is one tempo down, like black is not able to complete the castle from here. And whenever I play knight to c3, that's how black got one another extra tempo. By using that tempo, black is complete the castle. And after that, you can see if we play pawn to d4, whenever opponent takes the pawn, d4 pawn with the e pawn, you can see there's a threat on the knight. So we need to worry about our knight. Either we have to give up the knight, or we need to move the knight again and again. So that's not good. That is the exact reason here we don't need to focus to develop the knight to c3. But what we can do, we just simply play pawn to d4 and go for the Kotlanowski gambit. Now, why it is called Italian Kotlanowski gambit? Because you can see bishop is attacking the pawn, pawn is attacking the pawn, knight is attacking the pawn, knight is attacking the pawn. Okay, all right. So the chess which I study, I teach, that is called freestyle chess. Freestyle chess means where you can fight against your opponent in any condition. Like if you go for a traditional opening theories, then definitely you have to focus on the theories. And whenever the opponent plays something else, then you are become out of the theory. So in freestyle chess, you can develop your chess skill that whatever opponent play, you are ready for any kind of position to deal with. And now here you can see if your opponent choose to capture the pawn with the knight, then we just simply capture the bishop. So that's not working. So here we totally focused on capturing the pawn. So first, let's see if a knight takes the pawn. What will if knight takes the pawn, then you can see we just simply capture the pawn on e5. And again, threatens to capture the f7 and forking the queen and rook. And that is how also we are disturbing the black for the castle. So here is best that little black can complete the castle. Whenever black complete the castle, we bring our bishop to e3, threatens the knight, and here you can see only one defender and two attackers. So opponent is losing a piece here. So one and only saving way which opponent can think that knight can move to e6. If knight to c6, then the game is very simple from this position. Like here, we just go ahead and capture the pawn and giving up a check first. Okay, and now if the king moves away, then we just go ahead, capture the knight, and after pawn captures, if you want, you can capture the queen as well. And after rook captures, you can see we just simply capture the bishop and remain a piece up. Okay, you can pause the video, rewind it, and go for the variation to very slowly. Definitely, you can understand. So here bishop takes, and now the second option is that a rook takes the bishop. Then we just capture the rook, and here we threatens the queen. So king takes, knight is forced, and then we just win the second bishop. Okay, so both the variation we are at upper piece. Now here we are not upper piece, but you can see we're at exchange up. Black got only one rook and white got two rooks. So in the end game, it is completely winning for white. So now here opponent needs to move the knight to e6, and they thought that okay, they will save everything because the unprotected bishop on c5 is also protected by the knight. So this is the concept of destroying the defender. Who is the defender of the bishop? That is the knight. So we will go ahead and capture the knight. Okay. Now from here you can see if opponent just simply take the bishop, then we can take their bishop back. We are already winning up knight, so we are up a piece. So that's the reason here bishop takes, bishop is forced, and after that we just go ahead, capture a pawn, giving up a check to the king. And now here, if king moves away, we can slide down our bishop back. Now we are threatening to deliver the pawn on f7 and also threatens the bishop. And both the deals opponent can't deal with. Because here, if opponent move the bishop back, then moving the knight, giving up a which will fork check like a royal fork to the king and queen. And here rook takes, knight is forced, and then bishop takes rook. And that is how we are again exchange up. It's the same variation. So that is the exact reason from this position what opponent can do. Opponent just go ahead and capture the bishop, and after knight captures rook, king captures knight, we just simply capture the bishop. Okay. And now from here, if opponent is not careful and pushing the pawn, trying to go for the exchange, definitely we can push the pawn and we need another piece because the knight is pinned to the queen. Okay. So that's kind of preparation to provide from my end. And for that, you just need to concentrate to the move, like you have to follow the move area correctly, and you're really good to go. Now, let's go to the main line. So in the main line, you can see, and where I'm showing the night capture spawn variation first, because this variation is only available all over the internet, all over the YouTube, and other variations are very rare. So from here you can see to pawn takes pawn. This is the main line, and from here we just push the pawn, threatens the knight, and it is depends where the knight moves. If knight moves to the center, then queen moves to e2, or rook moves to e1. Both are winning. Okay. Here we are threatening the knight capture, and here opponent if opponent push the pawn, they thought opponent. But we just attack the bishop and we are attacking the knight, but that's completely wrong because we just complete the end passing and then knight takes pawn is not possible. So here opponent can push the pawn and it will just protect the knight. So first we can take another pawn, that is the queen, and after queen takes pawn, we just simply moving our knight, and only now it's a winning position for us. And the most important part over here is that bishop is controlling the diagonal, so it is not allowed to do the passing. So here bishop can move and we just simply go ahead capture the knight, and after pawn captures you can see we just simply captured back with the rook, giving up a check. So here bishop moves, and whenever bishop moves we just go ahead and moving the knight here. And now here the only saving issues is that opponent can complete the castle. Okay, and whenever opponent complete the long castle, then you can see we can move on knight f7 forking both the rooks. Okay, and that is how we are winning from the position. And now here if opponent move the bishop, try to threaten your rook. Okay, then definitely we can go ahead and capture the B sharp. And after queen takes a rook, you can see we can capture the rook as well. And after rook takes knight, here after all the transaction, you can see the position is a bit of equal, but the black king safety is compromised. So definitely we are getting advantage from this position. Okay. So there is no loss on this variation to whatever you can play from to this position. And okay, and from here you can see from knight moves, you can see if opponent attack our rook with the bishop. Okay, so, then what we can do from here, like here we just use to give a check with the bishop, and here it's not possible for the opponent to complete the castle because you can see if they to complete the castle, then simply we can move the bishop, and after that we can bring the queen and go for all sort of checkmating ideas. And here you can see if opponent just complete the castle from this position. Like I'm just one tempo down, so it's a bit of a difficult to explain this position. But here you can see there is nothing means that white can get a win, get the win from this position. Okay. So let me just go back and going for a one tempo down. So instead of d5, if opponent plays f5, then you can see we just simply go ahead and capture the pawn. Now knight can't capture it back, so here opponent can push the pawn, just threatening the bishop and knight, and here just the bishop takes pawn, and queen takes bishop. So here we are one piece down, but after knight to c3, you can see we are recovering that piece back. And now if you wondering that if pawn takes knight, what will happen? Like pawn can't take the knight because they just lost the queen. Okay. And we are also guaranteed to win the knight on the next move as well. Okay. So moving the pawn f5 and protecting the knight is also getting worse. Okay, that's not good. So what is the last option? Like the last option over here is like pushing the pawn, attacking the bishop, attacking the protecting the knight. So we just simply go ahead to doing the castle. And now if our opponent thought, okay, let's just move the bishop and protect the knight, we will go ahead, capture the pawn, returns the queen, and after queen takes back, here what we can do, we just simply moving the knight, and we are guaranteed to win a piece here. Okay. Now, if opponent move the queen and trying to protect everything, then we just simply capture the knight, and after bishop takes knight back, simply we can move the knight away, and then we are threatens to capture the bishop. Okay, and if opponent push the pawn and protecting the bishop, then we are not using the knight to capture the bishop yet. We just need to push the pawn and protect the bishop. Now here only two resources that opponent can push the pawn, giving up a discover check, and after king moves, you can see nothing opponent can do from here. Okay, and we are just guaranteed to win the bishop. So that is how we can remain a piece up. Okay, so in the middle game, one piece up to a couple of pawns up is a huge advantage to if you play the position. So these are the few lines from the Kuklinski Gambit. Okay, and let me show you. Okay, all right. Now here you can see opponent play bishop to c5, so we just complete the castle. Opponent play knight move. We can play pawn to d4, and here the last option is that bishop takes pawn. Okay, so just take a screenshot of this position, and you can remember that knight on f3, bishop on c4, and opponent will get knight on c6, knight on f6, and bishop on d4. Okay, this is the position, and now we can enter in the same position from the Lewis gambit as well. How? Like after e4, e5, bishop to c4, bishop to c5, and whenever we play pawn to d4, instead of capturing the pawn back of the pawn, opponent can use the bishop to take it back. So we just simply develop the knight. Opponent can develop the knight. We just complete the castle and opponent knight to f6. Now pause the video, rewind it to it for 10 to 15 seconds. Go to the previous position and just to compare first that from the Kukulinski gambit, this position is offered, and from the Lewis gambit, the same position is offered. Now, this is the main middle game plan which we can follow to win every match. Like here, we just use the knight to capture the bishop. Why? Because we want to play f4, just to give up this pawn in order to open the lines for the rook and all. Okay. And now from this position, there is two choices. If opponent takes the knight with the pawn, then you can see we can just simply go ahead playing pawn to F4, and that is how we are going for give up our pawns and lines for the attack. Now here if you want doing the topic, if knight takes the pawn, then we just simply move our rook threatens the knight. So finally saving resources that we can push the pawn. So here we just happy to give up our bishop because after queen takes the same threat like moving the knight, threatens the queen, threatens the knight. So here opponent don't get an option to move the pawn and protect it quicker because we are threatened as the queen. So here if opponent take the knight, we can just simply take the queen back. So here opponent can move the queen on the way back. So we just simply go ahead and capture the knight. So that is how we just give up our bishop and we are get the piece back. Okay, all right. Now here how black will continue, like black will complete the castle and we just simply moving our knight. And from here, you can see if opponent is not careful and develop the bishop to b6 or something, then what we can do, we just simply move our queen and go for the checkmate on the h6. And now, if opponent push the pawn, we can just simply moving our rook. And opponent is happy to capture one knight. We will capture it back with the pawn. And after that, there is no way the opponent can save the position because on the next move, you can see here queen can move, threatens our rook, or maybe they can move the bishop and threatens our rook, but it is too late because we just bring our rook on h4, threatening checkmate on h8, which opponent cannot able to deal with. Now the only option is that opponent can play pawn to f6 and try to create a escape square for the king. But thanks to this pawn, we just pushing the pawn, blocking the way of the king, and making so that they are moving the rook or playing any other move we'll just go ahead and deliver the checkmate. Okay, so these all are the prepared line. Okay, a lot of theories and lot of positions we can see from here, and that is how we can go and play the position. Okay. All right, thank you so much. So I hope you understand the facts like when we should go and play the Kotlowarsky, when we should play Max Lang, and when we should play the to release them. Okay. And now, if you have any doubts or anything, you can just contact me, and I will give you the solution regarding that. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.